Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun orbiting this at a distance of roughly 98 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended life forms are so amazingly primitive that they still think digital watches are a pretty neat idea. This planet has, or rather had, a problem, which was this. Most of the people living on it were unhappy for pretty much of the time. Many of the solutions were suggested for this problem, but most of these were largely concerned with the movement of small green pieces of paper, which is odd because on the whole it wasn't the small green pieces of paper that were unhappy. And so the problem remained. Lots of the people were mean, and most of them were miserable, even the ones with digital watches. Many were increasingly of the opinion that they'd all made a big mistake in coming down from the trees in the first place, and some said that even the trees had been a bad move, and that no one should ever have left the oceans. And then, one Thursday, nearly 2,000 years after one man had been nailed to a tree for saying how great it would be to be nice to people for a change, a girl sitting on her own in a small cafe in Rickmansworth suddenly realized what it was that had been going wrong all this time, and she finally knew how the world could be made good and a happy place. This time it was right, and it would work, and no one would have to get nailed to anything. Sadly, however, before she could get to the phone to tell anyone about it, a terrible, stupid catastrophe occurred, and the idea was lost forever. This is not her story, but it is a story of a terrible, stupid catastrophe and some of its consequences. It's also the story of a book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, not an Earth book, never published on Earth, and until the terrible catastrophe occurred, never seen or even heard of by any Earth man. Nevertheless, a wholly remarkable book. In fact, it was probably the most remarkable book to ever come out of the great publishing corporation of Ursa Minor, of which no Earthman had ever heard either. Not only is it a wholly remarkable book, it is also a highly successful one, more popular than the Celestial Home Care Omnibus, better selling than 53 More Things to Do in Zero Gravity, and more controversial than Ulan Kalufid's trilogy of philosophical blockbusters, where God went wrong, some more of God's greatest mistakes, and who is this God person anyway? In many of the more relaxed civilization on the outer eastern rim of the galaxy, the Hitchhiker's Guide had already supplanted the great Encyclopedia Galactica as a standard repository of all knowledge and wisdom, for though it has many omissions and contains much that is apocryphal, or at least widely inaccurate, the scores over the older, more pedestrian work in two important respects. First, it is slightly cheaper, and second, it has the words "Don't Panic" inscribed in large, friendly letters on its cover. Here's what the Encyclopedia Galactica has to say about alcohol. It says alcohol is a colorless, volatile liquid formed by the formation of sugars, and also note its intoxicating effects on certain carbon-based life forms. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy also mentions alcohol. It says that the best drink in existence is the Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster. It says that the effect of drinking a Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster is like having your brain smashed up by a slice of lemon wrapped around a large gold brick. The guide also tells you on which planets the best Pan-Galactic Gargle Blasters are mixed, how much you can expect to pay for one, and what voluntary organizations exist to help you rehabilitate afterwards. The guide even tells you how to mix one yourself. Take the juice of one of the old Jenks Sprite, it says, pours into 1 measure of water from the seas of Santragonus 5. Oh, that Sancrinian water, it says. Oh, those Sangrenian fish. Allow 3 cubes of Octuin Mega Gin to melt in the mixture. It must be properly iced or the benzene is lost. Allow 4 liters of Follinian marsh gas to bubble through it, in memory of all those happy hitchhikers who have died of the pleasure in the marshes of Philia. Over the back of a silver spoon float a measure of qualactin hypermint extract redolent of the heady odors of the dark qualactin zones, subtle, sweet, and mystic. Drop the tooth of a Lagolian sun tiger. Watch it dissolve, spreading the fires of the Lagonian sun steep into the heart of the drink. Sparkle Zamfa, add an olive, drink. But very carefully. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy sells rather better than the Encyclopedia Galactica. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has a few things to say on the subject of towels. A towel, it says, is about the most massively useful thing an interstellar hitchhiker can have. Partly, it has great practical value. You can wrap it around you for warmth as you bound across the cold moons of Jaglan Beta. You can lie on it on the brilliant marble-sanded beaches of Santragonus 5, inhaling the heady sea vapors. You can sleep under it beneath the stars which shine so redly on the desert world of Kakrafun. Use it to sail a mini-raft down the slow, heavy river Moth. Wet it for use in hand-to-hand combat. Wrap it around your head to ward off noxious fumes, or avoid the gaze of the ravenous bug-bladder beast troll. Mind-bogglingly stupid animal. It assumes that if you can see it, it can see you. Daft as a brush, but very, very ravenous. You can wave your towel in it in emergencies as a distance signal, and of course, dry yourself off with it if it still seems to be clean enough. Most importantly, a towel has immense psychological value. For some reason, if a strag, a non-hitchhiker, discovers that a hitchhiker has a towel with him, he will automatically assume that he is also in possession of a toothbrush, washcloth, soap, tin of biscuits, flask, compass map, ball of string, gnat spray, wet weather gear, spacesuit, etc., etc. Furthermore, the strag will then happily lend the hitchhiker any of these or a dozen other items that the hitchhiker might have accidentally lost. What the strag will think is that any man who can hitch the length and breadth of the galaxy, rough it, slum it, struggle against terrible odds, win through, and still know where his towel is clearly a man to be reckoned with. Hence the phrase that has been passed into hitchhiking slang, as in, "Hey, you sass that hoopy Ford prefect." There's a fruit who really knows where his towel is.
Before the Earth passed away, it was going to be treated to the very ultimate in sound reproduction, the greatest public address system ever built. But there was no concert, no music, no fanfare, just a simple message.
People of Earth, your attention, please. This is the prosthetic Vogon Jolt of the Galactic Hyperspace Planning Council. As you will no doubt be aware, the plans and development of the outlying regions of the galaxy require the building of a hyperspatial express route through your star system, and regrettably your planet is one of those scheduled for demolition. The process will take slightly less than 2 of your Earth minutes. Thank you.
The PA died away. Uncomprehendingly, terror settled on the watching people of Earth. The terror moved slowly through the gathered crowds as if they were iron filings on a sheet of board and a magnet was moving beneath them. Panic sprouted again, desperate, fleeing panic, but there was nowhere to flee to. Observing this, the Vogons turned on their PA again. It said,
"There's no point in acting all surprised about it. All the planning charts and demolition orders have been on display in your local planning department in the Alpha Centauri for 50 of your Earth years, so you've had plenty of time to lodge any formal complaint, and it's far too late to start making a fuss about it now."
The PA fell silent again, and its echo drifted off across the land. The huge ships turned slowly in the sky with easy power. On the underside of each hatchway opened an empty black square. By this time, somebody somewhere must have manned a radio transmitter, located a wavelength, and broadcast a message back to the Vogon ships to plead on behalf of the planet. Nobody had ever heard what they said. They only heard the reply. The PA slammed back into life again. The voice was annoyed. It said,
What do you mean you've never been to Alpha Centauri? For heaven's sake, mankind, it's only 4 light years away. You know, I'm sorry, but if you can't be bothered to take an interest in local affairs, that's your own lookout. Energize the demolition beams.
Light poured out of the hatchways.
I don't know. A pathetic bloody planet have no sympathy at all.
Marvin trudged on down the corridor, still moaning.
And then, of course, I've got this terrible pain in all the diodes down on my left side.
No, said Arthur grimly as he walked along beside him. Really?
Oh, yes. I mean, I've asked for them to be replaced, but no one ever listens.
I can imagine. Vague whistling and humming noises were coming from Ford. Well, he kept saying to himself, Zaphod Beeblebrox. Suddenly Marvin stopped and held up his hand.
You know what happens now, of course.
No, what? Said Arthur, who didn't want to know.
We've arrived. Another one of those doors.
Well, Ford said impatiently, do we go through?
Do we go through? Yes, this is the entrance to the bridge. I was told to take you to the bridge, probably the highest demand that will be made on my intellectual capacities today. I shouldn't wonder.
Slowly, with great loathing, he stepped towards the door like a hunter stalking his prey. Suddenly, it slid open.
Thank you for making a simple door very happy.
And the next thing that happened after that was that the Heart of Gold continued on its way, perfectly normal, with a rather fetchingly redesigned interior. It was somewhat larger and done out in delicate pastel shades of green and blue. In the center, a spiral staircase leading nowhere in particular. Soon in a spray of ferns and yellow flowers, and next to it a stone sundial pedestal housed the main computer terminal. Cunningly deployed lightning and mirrors created the illusion of standing in the conservatory overlooking a wide stretch of exquisitely manicured garden. Around the periphery of the conservatory area stood a marble-topped tables on intricately beautiful wrought iron gates. As you gazed into the polished surface of the marble, the vague forms of the instruments became visible, and as you touched them, the instruments materialized instantly under your hands. Looked at the form of the correct angles, and the mirrors appeared to reflect all the required data readouts. Through it was far from clear where they were reflected from. It was in fact sensational and beautiful. Relaxing in a wickerwork sunchair, Zaphod Beeblebrox said, "What the hell just happened?" "Well, I was just saying," said Arthur, lounging by a small fish pool. "There's this improbability drive switch over there." He waved at where it had been. There was a potted plant there now. "But where are we?" said Ford, who was sitting on the spiral staircase, a nicely chilled Pangalactic Gargle Blaster in his hand. "Exactly where we were, I think," said Trillian, as all about them the mirror suddenly showed them an image of the blighted landscape of Magrathea, which still scooted along beneath them. Zaphod leapt out of his seat. "Then what happened to the missiles?" he said. A new and astounding image appeared in the mirrors. "They would appear," said Ford doubtfully, "to have turned into a bowl of petunias and a very surprised-looking sperm whale."
At an improbability factor of 8,767,128 to 1 against.
Eddie chimed in. Zaphod stared at Arthur. Did you think of that, Earthman? He demanded. Well, said Arthur, all I did was, that was very good thinking of it, turn on the improbability drive for a second without first activating the proofing screens. Hey, kid, you just saved our lives. What do you think of that? Oh, said Arthur. Well, it was nothing really. Was it? Says Zaphod. Oh, well, forget it then. Okay, computer, take us to land. But I said forget it. Another thing that gone forgotten was the fact that, against all probability, a sperm whale had suddenly been called into existence several miles above the surface of an alien planet. And since this was not naturally tenable position for a whale, this poor innocent creature had very little time to come to terms with its identity, as the whale before it then had to come to terms with not being a whale anymore. The complete record of its thought from the moment it began its life to the moment it ended it. Ah, what's happening? It thought. Excuse me, who am I? Hello, why am I here? What's my purpose in life? What do I mean by who am I? Calm down now, get a grip now. Oh, this is interesting. Sensation, what is it? It's sort of a yawning, tingling sensation in my I suppose I better start finding names for things. If I want to make any headway in what the sake I shall call an argument, I shall call the world. So, let's call it my stomach. Good. Ooh, it's getting quite strong. And hey, what about this whistling, roaring sound going past? What am I suddenly going to call my head? I suppose I can call it that. When? Is that a good name? I'll do. Perhaps I can find a better name for it later. I found out what it's for. It must be something very important because there is certainly seems to be a hell of a lot of it. Hey, what's this thing? This, let's call it tail. Yeah, tail. Hey, I can really thrash it around pretty good, can't I? Wow, this feels really great. Doesn't it seem to be achieved very much, but I'll probably find a way what it's for later on. Now I can build up a coherent picture of things, yes? No, never mind. This is really exciting to find out so much about so much to look forward to. I'm quite dizzy with anticipation, or is it the wind? There really is a lot of that now, isn't there? And hey, what's that thing suddenly coming towards me very fast? Very, very fast. So big and flat and round. It needs a big, wide sounding name like Ound, round, ground. That's it. That's a good name. I wonder if it'll be friends with me. And the rest of that sudden wet thud, there was silence. Curiously enough, the only thing that went through the mind of the bowl of petunias, as it fell, was, oh no, not again. Many people have speculated that if we knew exactly why the bowl of petunias had thought that, we would know a lot about the nature of the universe than we do now.
I am going to reveal the meaning of life, the universe, and everything, but I don't think you're going to like it.
Doesn't matter, said Flockig. We must know it now.
Now?
Yes, now.
Okay. The answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Yes, what is it? What is it?
Is 42.
Hello there, that one voice actor here, and I want to all wish you a happy Tao Day. For those of you who don't know, Tao Day celebrates the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide of the Galaxy, Douglas Adams, and his love for literature. And The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is probably one of the funniest book series I've ever read. It also makes you think. It's like philosophical, yet funny at the same time. And Douglas really had a good sense of humor while writing this series. And for those of you who are Hitchhikers purists, I understand that some of the lines have been changed, but that is to make it easier for me to read and almost do a radio drama. And if some of you have a problem with that, just to let you know, Douglas Adams never really had a problem in changing things. He felt that was the whole point of adaptations, was to add something new. Which is why when he did the radio drama, he didn't put everything that was in the radio drama to the books. Which I think is actually really interesting. So, I went and removed some lines of dialogue so it would flow easier. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed this. And happy Towel Day. And go get yourself a Pan Galactic Gargle Blaster.